What's going on? It's your main man, Rick the Dawn. Hey, yo, this episode is brought to you by Wordy.com, my social media site. Check it out. But I have to ask this question. Why was Josh so feared? I'm asking you, help me understand because I've tried to understand it. I've watched Josh play, and he's not even in my top five. So I have to ask the question. Help me out. Help me answer this. Now, let's talk about players who I presume are a lot stronger than Josh. Franny, super athleticism. Did you see the way she got up the wall? She was the first one to get up the wall, and it came as a complete surprise because you look at Franny and you say to yourself, she's a geek. She probably plays Harry Potter. She got up that wall as if it was like a Harry Potter broomstick limited edition at the top of it. Franny is a problem, and she has an immaculate social game. But let's just talk about the athleticism. Why not? Then you got Matt B. They're a twosome. Matt B and Franny. They're like double trouble. Then you have Carson, a super genius. This guy works for freaking NASA, right? Then you have Danny. Have you ever seen Danny do a combat role? Like he has combat skills to the maximum. Did you see him roll before? Go watch him roll in one of these little episodes. I forget which one. Then you got Carolyn. She is the queen of confusion. I don't even understand how people don't realize she's a threat, but I figured it out. She's confusing everybody. You got Brandon, superhuman strength. He's super tall, NFL player. You got Jamie. She has a freaking magic wand. Okay, she has a magic. Do you understand what I'm saying? Jamie has a magic wand, and they still don't see her as a threat. I can't believe this. All right, then you have Heidi. Heidi is the queen of invisibility. I forget that Heidi is even on the show. And she's super strong. Like if you've ever watched Survivor, the players that look like Heidi go extremely far. She's going to be at the finals, everyone. I'll be the first one to tell you. Spoiler alert. I think for the first time in reality TV history, I've named at least two of the top three finalists this season. I'm telling you right now. Carson, Heidi, and I haven't figured out the third person. But I believe that those two people will be there because there's just no trajectory which aims at them being kicked out the game. Like right now, Kane is on the hot seat. Yam Yam is on the hot seat. And I think Carolyn will probably be my number three. So I'll ask the question again. You know what Josh has? Josh has a fake tree idol with tree mail beads. That's his super strength. So you explain it to me because I don't want to be the person to try to break down this puzzle. But I see several players that are stronger than Josh. Is he, he's gone? Great. To me, this was a wasted week. In my personal opinion, Yam Yam is a much stronger player than Josh. If we're trying to go for strong players, I'm not sure if this is just survivor manipulation at its finest. I listened to a lot of the players in terms of Josh's, aura. Franny talked about him having an impeccable social game. Like, Franny, are you kidding me? This guy has a terrible social game. Josh has one of the worst social games I've seen in a while because he's the first player to get caught in a lie twice. He lied about his profession after telling somebody he was exactly what he lied about. Then he told Brandon that he has a real idol, told everybody else he has a fake one. The worst social game play I've ever seen. So I don't understand that, Franny. He's dangerous. I'm just not buying it. I don't know why he was so feared, but I'll tell you this. He wasn't supposed to be. It's a lot of players. I'm going to tell you who I would be afraid of. Carson. Just saying. Jamie has a magic wand. Do I have to remind you of that? All right. Anyway, this is just hilarious, man. I don't know what this game is turning into, but I'm just going to call it Survivor BS. I'm going to call it that. Like, they're just looking for reasons to get rid of people, and they have to make up these narratives. But BS. I'm going to call it that. Like, they're just looking for reasons to get rid of people, and they have to make up these narratives. But how do you digest what you saw this episode? Because my second big question is, how would you feel right now in the game? All right, this game is starting to just starting to spiral out of control. And I believe it was Matt B who coined the phrase, it is survival with a capital S, that is a great way to sum up this episode. And I have to ask this question to you, and I'll ask it again just in case you missed it. What would you be like? How would you feel right now in the game? Now, I know as a viewer, you have all this information you're privy to what this person thinks, what this person thinks, what that person's saying, what that person's saying. But if you're in the game, you have none of that. How are you going to handle yourself? How are you going to present yourself? That is a question that I'm posing to you. How nerve-wracking will it be to sit at tribal council knowing that you haven't heard not one person's diary room confession or diary confessions? You know how terrifying that would be? Because as a viewer, we become accustomed to knowing the ins and outs of what everyone's thinking and doing. But if you're in the game, you don't have any of that. And you literally have to depend on players who you've hopefully grown trust with to tell you what's going on. I'll answer my own question. I'd be terrified. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Terrified. But I would not be terrified of Josh. All right. So as a quick recap, not much to recap here, but obviously the merge begins, or does it? So Jeff definitely pulls another slick one where he tells everyone to drop their buff with the caveat that they have to earn their spot. I'm a big fan of that. I thought the challenge this episode was actually well constructed. I mean, how heavy did that ball look? I mean, even Brandon, who has like super strength as an NFL player, struggled to get that ball over those high marks. Loved it. And then Carson notes that there are several idols in play. So as the merge or the fake merge starts to accumulate, he starts to do the math because that's who Carson is. He's trying to figure out where all the idols are going or where they've been or who has one, who doesn't have one. And that was really awesome to see. Obviously, Danny has one. Jamie has a – does Jamie have one? No, Jamie does have one. She thinks she has two, right? Am I right or wrong on that? And then, of course, Carolyn has one. Josh instantly becomes a target. The minute everyone gets together, his name is ringing like a doorbell, for crying out loud. And it ultimately becomes a battle between Yam Yam and Josh. All right, later Kane gets thrown in, but Kane wasn't going anywhere this episode. Anyway, Carson plans to let power. I want to talk about Carson's plan real quick. At one point in his diary confessions, Carson points out that he tells us his plan. Okay, he tells us his plan. It's a great plan, by the way. He says that he wants the powerhouses to duke it out, and he's going to lay low. And he has the frame and the genetic makeup to lay low. For whatever reason, people are not making the connections about his genius or his intelligence. Maybe he's playing it down, and we're only seeing the true version of who Carson is, and they're not. Kind of like with Carolyn. I feel like Carolyn is getting away with just being perceived as stupid. When you listen to her diary confessions, you realize how intelligent she is. She's like a freaking genius, for crying out loud. And I can imagine that players playing this game with Carolyn after the season has concluded, watching it back and just being baffled. Like, I had no idea she had that level of insight about the game. But anyway, Carson plans to let the powerhouses battle it out, and he didn't specify who those powerhouses are. But he plans to let them battle it out. And then he wants to come in and swoop in once everybody's pretty much wounded and knocked off and galvanize the lesser players to now go against the surviving powerhouse or houses. I love that plan. And that's the exact plan I would play if I could in a game like Survivor. Because why not? It's a really awesome plan. But anyway, the immunity challenge was just beautiful. Some standouts for me was Franny. The way that she got up the wall was just crazy, insane. And I do want to. I cannot say that Carson is not the MVP here. Like, Jeff barely ever shows bias when it comes to this game. And after Carson completes the puzzle so quickly, even Jeff breaks character. Like, hey, here's what do you give him? The buffs or something like that. Hey, I'm going to just get it straight to you. I mean, you won this by yourself. That's kind of what he said. And now I'm paraphrasing. I think he says something along those lines. Like, hey, I'm just going to give this to you. After all, you want it, or something like that. And I was like, that's not like Jeff. Tone it down, Jeff. But he couldn't help himself because Carson absolutely demolished this. And when Jeff said that, I watched each player's face. You know what player seemed to be most offended by that statement, but didn't show it? It was Brandon. Brandon seemed to be very offended by that because, Brandon is an NFL player. He's competitive. So hearing that this short, small kid with glasses And speaking of glasses, can I just take a moment? You know, I'm sorry, this is so off trail, but they're supposed to be in the jungle with little to no aid. But I can't help but notice how clean these guys' glasses are. I mean, right now, I'm in a house with tons of wipes and cloths at my disposal, and my glasses are not that clean. Like, I was looking at the sparkle, like they got Windex and just sprayed their glasses and wiped it before every diary confession. I mean, go look at Carson's glasses and tell me they're not sparkling, okay? And the same can be said about Kane, off topic. But anyway, the point is, definitely wipe that competition away. And I know why now. When I was watching it in real time, I could not figure out why this guy was wiping out this puzzle like this, because we've all seen the tree puzzle and it's never this efficient. And it turns out this guy has a freaking clone of the tree that he had built, 3D printed. Carson has literally changed Survivor forever. Now, we did hear about Matt G doing something similar to this, but I don't think that his creations was as accurate as Carson's. Perhaps there's this like Survivor wiki online where you can like look at all the games and how to build them. But when they show the actual replica that Carson was working on, I said, that's it right there. Like, you can't, what is that? So he's changed the game forever, because we've heard of super players being on the game, on the show, but this is one of the first times where I've seen a super player actually win because they were a super player. A lot of times I hear people say they're super players, and it's like, okay, cool. Like, and then they show you a little wit and intelligence and the way they strategize. But this is one of the first times I've seen the super player mantra be used in a physical way. All right, where this player is now building the game itself and not practicing it, but mastering it, and then showing that on the game show itself. He just changed the game. There's no way. But one of the worst decisions by far by your main man Carson, who I wanted to ask you about, how strong is he? Does he have a chance to win? But one of the worst decisions that I saw this episode was Carson going back and telling Kane that his name was thrown around. Because prior to that, Kane had no idea, and Kane's understanding was it was a toss-up between both Josh and Yam Yam. Carson, for whatever reason, and I'm going to say this was a bad calculation on his part. Even smart people make mistakes, apparently. But he divulges that Kane's name comes up. And the worst thing to happen after that is that Kane goes and tells everybody. And I thought that Carson should have probably known better. And he doesn't, turns out. So Kane goes and and then Kane does a terrible job. Somebody just basically saved your life, Kane. You think when you go and tell everybody what that person said, you don't want to use their name, because Kane immediately goes to everyone and says, hey, Carson told me, Carson said you guys were throwing my name around. It's like, Kane, the dude saved your life, possibly. You think you want to throw him a little bit of a raft? Some of the worst gameplay right there between two players who I thought was better than what I still think Carson's pretty top tier this season, but still, that was pretty bozo-ish. But as you know, Josh goes home. They go to tribal council. They do a pretty good job with picking their person early and not diverging from that. This is one of the first times ever. I'm serious. It's like the first time ever where they pick somebody to go home early in the episode and they actually stick to it. I think it was Jamie who said that. Like, Jamie was saying, like, hey, we have our pick. We're going to vote Josh out. It should be an easy afternoon. Or will it? She does kind of question it. But it turns out it was pretty easy. And again, I can't understand why Josh is a threat. You have Franny, who can jump up a wall in one jump. Matt B, who's her partner, he's the king of joy. Like, every time you look at Matt B, he's got a smile on his face. How can you vote that smile out? Like, he just looks like a little kitten or something. I don't know. You have Carson, who's a freaking genius, who builds the game and then masters it, and then comes on the game and destroys everything. And then you have Danny, who can combat roll into a tunnel that is 4 feet. Like, goodness gracious, like 4 feet in circumference. Like, Danny is a combat rolling. Then you got Brandon, who's super strong. Jamie, who has a magic wand. This should be illegal. The girl has a magic wand. and we still talking about Josh? Somebody explain that to me, please.